Greetings. This is TimeRider. This will be the second installment of the International Consortium of Die-Cast Artists. This month, we tackled luxury cars. My contribution is the Matchbox number 44B Rolls-Royce Phantom 5. Rolls-Royce is a name that has been in production since 1906. They are currently a subsidiary of the BMW Automotive Group. But they weren't always. Rolls-Royce has a checkered history of ownership and financial struggles. Ironically, the genuinely British creation is in the hands of the Germans. The Phantom 5 was an ultra-exclusive sedan produced from 1959 to 1968. An interesting feature was an ultra-low gear, which made the car ideal for ceremonies as it could roll along at walking speed. Many notable people owned the Phantom 5, including John Lennon, Queen Elizabeth, and Elton John. Lennon wanted his to be all black, including the radiator, but Rolls turned him down. Lesney introduced the casting in 1964 and sold it until 1967. They can be found in colors ranging from silver gray to a darker metallic mauve. The castings to look for have gray wheels. While on the surface this might not seem very challenging, I picked it solely because of the color. I had a pretty good idea how to make it. Let's see. The casting was held together with a single post and a tab in the rear bumper. The trunk deck, which opened, was held together by the interior of the car. But getting it apart was pretty simple. One post to drill. It was also equipped with the standard suspension, which of course was bent in the wrong direction, so I was going to have to straighten that out. The interior looked pretty good. It was a little dirty, but nothing a little cleaning won't fix. The window glass was held in with one of those weird-looking split rivets. I just carefully drilled it out without going through the roof of the car. And eventually I did get it out and took a look at the casting. Looked pretty good. A drop of oil, and we tap out the hole that we drilled. I always remember to go back and forth. And then finally, a button screw. I took the wheels off, so we had 3 pieces to go into the stripper. Give it a little shake. And next thing you know, we've got clean castings. The base I was just going to paint semi-gloss black, but it still needed to be cleaned up. You know, there's always a little bit of paint left in the crevices of those letters. I cleaned up the casting to get all of the remnants of the stripper off of it, using a cotton bud to get into the little crevices on the underside. And then I cleaned it up with a wire wheel. I followed that up with some 4/0 steel wool to get the casting ready for paint. And I've probably said this before, but there is no such thing as too much preparation. Once you get the casting clean, you probably need to wash it down with mineral spirits or lacquer thinner or something to get rid of the oils from your finger. So I started with a coat of Tamiya White light primer. As you know, an undercoat can influence the top coat, and I wanted this to have a bright undercoat. I actually thought this color looked like what you might call champagne. And I actually went on YouTube and watched a video. And as a result of that video, I used Tamiya X11 silver, Tamiya X12 gold, and a little bit of Tamiya X7 red. Had a little schmutz in the grill there, cleaning it out with a toothpick. One thing I found about using metal paint, you don't typically have to do a tack coat. You can usually just spray it on. And I followed that up with a coat of clear. I think I knew by this point that I had actually probably used a little bit too much red in this paint, and that I was probably going to have to do it over. The base I primed again with Tamiya White, and then I just sprayed Tamiya Semi-Gloss Black. So having stripped the paint once again, and clean up the casting with the wire brush. You know, I actually buy the cheap Chinese brushes. I've heard some other restoration guys say don't get them, they come apart too easy. I guess maybe I don't lean into them too hard, so I've never really had much of a problem with them. .4/0 steel wool is what I use. And for those of you that don't know, 4/0 is just 4 zeros. It's a really fine steel wool. And follow that up with, like I said before, mineral spirits or lacquer thinner, something to get the oils from your fingers off of it. No, I'm not, 100% sure. But I use pretty much the same paints as I used the first time around. X11, X12, and a little bit of X7, but I was a little bit more frugal with the X7 red. Of course, make sure you get it from all sides. Typically I finish off a paint job with Tamiya X22, but I didn't want this to have the kind of shine that X22 typically provides. So what I'm using on this is X35, which is a semi-gloss clear, thinking that I wanted to try to get a shine that was more consistent with what you might have seen in the period. If you look at, the original Matchbox cars, they're usually not super shiny, but they do have a shine or a luster to them, and I'm trying to recreate that. So when I looked at the variation listings for this car, the only things that were ever painted were the headlights and the grille. And I looked very closely at a lot of pictures, and actually the radiator tank up at the top was never painted silver. It was always just the middle of the radiator. So that's what I'm doing here. I usually put a little drop in the middle and then spread it around. I found that works best when you're dealing with something that has ridges like this. And then, as you might suspect, all of the tires got a little bit of a bath. And they got it on both sides. And then, as per normal, what I'm going to do is try to pick the best side and put that to the outside. Yeah, actually using the brush there to kind of flip it around. And after making sure that everything is dry, it's time for assembly. I'm using, it's actually gasket sealant. It's called RTV Black to hold the window in. It's basically a black silicone. And you may ask, well, gee, why didn't you use clear silicone? Well, I didn't use clear silicone because I didn't have any clear silicone. Trust me, you'll never see it. Now, the trunk lid, or as we Americans call it, is held in by the interior, which I just cleaned with soapy water. And then the straightened suspension. There's a notch on the front that goes around the post. Try to get everything in there correctly. And then put the chassis on. So we'll take a trip back to where I started. It was a lot of fun doing this model. I really like chasing after colors like I did here, and I might not have nailed it, but I think I was within the range of what you might expect from a new version of this. So that being said, let's take a look at where I wound up. The Matchbox 44B Rolls-Royce Phantom 5. So I'm just curious. Make your comments below about what you think about that semi-gloss clear coat, if you think that was the way to go. Since this is a competitive build, shall we say, or cooperative build, I guess is better, because I'm really not competing with these other guys. There won't be an episode of The Bench. This is TimeRider, and I'll leave the light on for you. Subscribe if you like it. Click the little thumb. See you next time.